Hi, my name is Sheila Karuna. Welcome to New Light Streaming Love and Sassy Seer Sheila, as this will be seen on both channels. So, yesterday I took a little road trip over and picked up my sister and brought her back over my way. She lives about 2 hours from me for a visit. And before I left, I received in my inbox what I'm about to share with you. I knew the moment I saw the title that I was to record it. So I have not read it for myself. That's how it works for me. And this is from astrobutterfly.com. And I'm going to be reading it directly to you from my email. And when you go to astrobutterfly.com and sign up for her free newsletter or blog, I'm not quite sure what she actually calls it. When she updates that, you will get in your email box free of charge. And she has a lovely site. She has lots to offer there as far as if you're, interested in astrology, maybe you're brand new to astrology. I was when I first started this little journey I'm on, and she has lots of really good information, and I love her perspective. Each astrologer has a different perspective, and just like we all do on different things. And I love her take. And so oftentimes when I get her blog in my email, I get an intuitive hit right away that it's something that I'm to record. So I will be reading it from my desktop. So bear with me as I pull that up here now. So this is Uranus, and this is a two-parter. Because it said yesterday that this would be a two-part report. And yesterday was the first. And then I just received the second one, the part 2 in my inbox. So that's actually what reminded me to do this first thing this morning. So, and so straight from the email, I'm going to just begin. This is part 1 of 2. Uranus in Gemini 2025 to 2033, how it will influence you. This is the first part of the Uranus in Gemini report. Tomorrow you will receive the second part, which includes information about Uranus in Gemini transit from 2025 to 2033, as well as its influence on our natal charts. And if you're not real familiar with astrology and you would like to know how to do your own natal chart, or there is some reports that I found out how to run for myself that I'm happy to share with you. If you send me an email at consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com, including your name, birth date and time and place. I'm happy to run that report for you. It's a free thing. You can do it on your own. You don't really need me. There's lots of different places you could do that for yourself. And then, for me, I tend to view this as a snapshot of the energy on the planet at the moment of my birth. And it sort of helps me get into the perspective that my soul had in mind for my lifetime, what I'm working with, what kind of energies I was born under. And it's been, it explains so much about my life because it's way more in depth and detail than simply your zodiac sign. Because each one of us have all the planets in a particular place in the sky at the moment of our birth. And so if you're interested in knowing about that, I don't charge for anything like that. So sometimes it might take me a little bit, but If you want something like that, send me an email, consciousconversationscentral@gmail.com, and I'm happy to do that for you. Okay, so, dear Sheila, if you, by the way, if you do this, it'll say, dear whoever you are. On July 7th, 2025, Uranus moves into Gemini. Uranus only changes signs every 7 years, so this is big. Uranus is the last of the big three, also known as the outer planets, to change signs. Last year in November, Pluto left Capricorn and moved into Aquarius. In March 2025, Neptune left Pisces and entered Aries. And now Uranus in Gemini is the final piece in this triad of ingresses. Uranus in Gemini marks a massive shift from yin energy, and in parentheses, she has Capricorn, Pisces, Taurus, to yang energy, Aquarius, Aries, Gemini. This transition is unprecedented and will impact us on all levels: mental, emotional, social, and technological. We don't have to watch the news to realize the world is changing, and it's changing rapidly. We can feel it in our everyday lives. Reality is accelerating at a pace we haven't witnessed before. Oh boy, that feels so right smack on. It's like time is speeding up in a lot of ways, it feels like to me. And this is just the beginning. Pluto, Neptune, and from July 7th, 2025 onwards, Uranus are simply giving us a taste of what's about to come, because there is much, much more to come. Neptune and Uranus will eventually retrograde into the signs they departed for one last look back before fully committing to the new era. And then, in February 2026, we have the big astrological bang, the Neptune-Saturn conjunction at 0 Aries. You may wonder, what has Uranus in Gemini got to do with that? A lot. Not only because Uranus in Gemini is part of the bigger picture that's being painted by the outer planetary shifts, but also because Uranus in Gemini is directly aspecting the Saturn-Neptune, quote, Genesis conjunction in February 2026 in the first degree of the zodiac. I'm not quite sure what she means by that, but she has Genesis capitalized like the book of Genesis, and she has it in quotations. So that's very interesting. So Uranus in Gemini will have a very important message and role in the story to unfold. And it's all woven into a much larger transformation, as we will explore further in this write-up. Well, I think what I got just then for my own self, as I said, I'm not quite sure what she refers to there. And when you think about the book of Genesis being in the beginning, and the fact that this is all new signs and big, big deal and transformation, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So, Uranus, the father, the script. First things first, who is Uranus and what does it want? In astrology, Uranus is represented by 2 archetypes. The Greek god Auranorus. Auranorus. It's Ouranos. Not heard of that god. Together with Gaia, birthed the Titans, the ancestors of the Olympian gods. Uranus is literally the father of the world as we know it. Oh, I see. The Greek god Uranus, together with Gaia, birthed the Titans, the ancestors of the Olympian gods. Okay, I get that. So, according to zodiacal Greek mythology, those two are the parents of Earth, Gaia, I guess. No, together with Gaia. Oh, the reality as we know it. Okay, I got it. It took me a second. My guidance just showed me what that is. Okay. When we refer to the Father Sky and Mother Earth, we speak of how heaven and earth unite to create life, consciousness, and matter intertwined. Uranus is the intelligent design that writes the script of our existence. Many astrologers say that Uranus is the higher mind, where Mercury is the lower mind, octave speaking. The world as we know it is based on the Uranian, quote, framework, an invisible architecture of order, logic, and pattern. Uranus is the big brain of the universe, that force that not only designs the blueprint, but also makes sense of what's happening at the larger scale. The second archetype associated with Uranus and its modern psychological role in astrology is Prometheus. Prometheus defied the gods, stole fire from Mount Olympus, and gave it to humans. This archetype speaks for the drive to democratize knowledge, to make the divine accessible. Uranus equals progress, with all that this entails. This is also where the humanitarian aspects typically associated with Uranus come from, but also its link to innovation, disruption, and tools or technologies that make our life easier and give us more freedom from natural constraints or survival limitations. Pardon me. When humans got fire, they were no longer at the mercy of the elements, and this freed them to evolve, to create, to imagine beyond survival. Uranus, freedom and innovation. Uranus, the first planet that lies beyond Saturn, is the first invisible planet. It sits just outside what we can see with the naked eye, just beyond the system. Uranus is the planet of paradigm shift, the one that breaks the rules and, by doing so, opens our horizons to what lies beyond convention. Symbolically, it represents our capacity to break free from rules, structures, and inherited scripts, to go off grid, both literally and metaphorically. In that sense, it represents freedom, because when we step outside the narrative, we gain the power to choose our own. We cannot see Uranus in the sky with the naked eye. We need a tool. We need a telescope. The fact that Uranus was discovered with a telescope is significant. It reminds us that Uranian energy is not accessed through instinct or tradition. It requires tools. Okay, I'm being shown in my mind right now, I'm being shown my perspective on the tarot or oracle cards in general. I've always said this: less of a divination tool and more of a method of focus and attention to help me focus my attention inward so I could hear my inner voice. And so that makes a lot of sense right there. Because, and it will absolutely vary for each being, the tools that work for you will vary. Absolutely. And maybe tarot's not it. Maybe runes are it for you. Maybe how bones fall is for you. Maybe your own journaling is for you. You just never know what it's going to be unless you try all different sorts of ways, right? So I'm going to read this again. The fact that Uranus was discovered with a telescope is significant. It reminds us that Uranian energy is not accessed through instinct or tradition. It requires tools, awareness, and an extra layer of perception. Innovation requires this leap beyond what's visible, this willingness to look where others haven't. If we were to distill Uranus to its core essence, we get this simple formula: Uranus equals freedom plus innovation. We will come back to these Uranian qualities again and again throughout the text. Uranus in Gemini, the electrical bee. What about Uranus and Gemini? What do we get when we combine Uranus' freedom and innovation with Gemini's mental agility and information processing speed? First, it's worth noting that these two archetypes gel quite well. Both Uranus and Gemini are open, curious energies. They thrive on speed and change. Well, that makes sense now why we feel like everything is sped up, which is why we can expect a lot of movement, a lot of innovation. But this also means too much movement and too much innovation. Yeah, because there's a higher and lower octave to every single thing. In Gemini, Uranus is on steroids. Think of an electrical flying object, erratic, unpredictable. Is it a drone? Is it a bee? Moving at a very high speed, flashing in and out of awareness, buzzing around faster than we can track. The image almost gets us nervous, right? Uranus in Gemini can bring us brilliant ideas and progress at the speed of light, but can also short circuit our ability to ground or integrate what's happening. Okay, that's very interesting too, because there's been a lot of integration for me personally, and sometimes it becomes very overwhelming. This is important to keep in mind. It can leave the nervous system a bit too excited, and to remember that there are ways to channel this incredibly potent energy into clarity, communication, and invention, letting it do what it does best. Uranus and Gemini in the beginning. There was the word. This is very interesting. Gemini is the sign of awareness, information, and knowledge. Quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. John's gospel equates word with God or awareness. Indeed, we become sentient beings when we became sentient beings when we gained awareness through the word of knowledge. It is believed, pardon me, it is believed that the age of Gemini began when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, which would be Gemini. Eating from the tree of knowledge means they developed awareness, hence realizing they were naked. Eating from the tree of knowledge and developing awareness signifies the beginning of the sapient human, capable of thinking, reflecting, and understanding, which is also Gemini. Before the age of Gemini, human consciousness was tribal, not individualistic. It was during the age of Gemini that humans began to perceive reality through the separation of subject and object, the act of witnessing. This Gemini mental process marked the birth of individual human consciousness. We could go as far as to say that the very foundation of what makes us human is rooted in Gemini's awareness. Well, that does kind of make sense, doesn't it? But if it's awareness that makes us, quote, human, what differentiates us from other animals? What happens if we separate awareness and cognition from our body? Can awareness and cognition truly exist apart from our biological form? Can AI develop awareness, or is awareness something inherently dependent on our mix of matter and spirit? I'm going to pause this for a moment so I can clear my throat. You won't notice anything except for maybe a jump in how it looks, but I will unpause it and continue recording after I clear my throat. I'll spare you all that. Okay, I hope that'll work. See, sometimes when I start toning, it moves things around in my body, and it starts. I start having weirder, different issues. I don't know how to explain it, but that's what happens. Okay, so back to it here. So can awareness and cognition truly exist apart from our biological form? Can AI develop awareness? Or is awareness something inherently dependent on our mix of matter and spirit? These are the types of questions that Uranus invites us to explore while in Gemini. Perhaps a new type of awareness, of consciousness, will be born, especially in connection with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction at 0 Aries, which Uranus in Gemini will be sextiling. This forms a sign 1, birth, sign 3, cognition, connection. Will we be witnessing the emergence of a new form of intelligence or consciousness? That's very interesting. Will we find ways to connect with the supercomputer of the cosmos, with the script of the universe? There's an intelligent design to the cosmos. According to the, quote, as above, so below principle, just as atoms organize into molecules and stars. Wow, I can see why I had to record this, because this is fascinating right here. And just as atoms organize into molecules and stars into galaxies by following cyclical patterns and fractals, our brains also organize by tapping into pre-existing informational structures. Our minds are not just neurons firing at random. We're more like antennas. Yes, we are. Tuned into an invisible layer of information that follows a universal archetypal framework or, quote, script that underlies all of existence. Yes, we are. It's just a matter of our tuning ourselves in, that focus and attention that I spoke of earlier. And because of our programming and conditioning, the installed belief systems that do not actually belong to us, they were handed down from time immemorial, and most of them we don't even know if they're actually true. Um, the belief that we cannot, or the belief that we are not that kind of being, is what keeps us away from. Because I've been proving it to myself that we can, and we do, and you can do that too. I'm nobody special. We all are special in that way. Uranus in Gemini marks a new chapter in our relationship with awareness itself. Just as the original age of Gemini gave birth to the witnessing mind, Uranus in Gemini may signal the next step, the emergence of a new kind of awareness that bridges human, artificial, and cosmic intelligence. In this cycle, the quote word may no longer be limited to spoken language. It may be coded, transmitted, or intuited. It may arrive in new forms that connect us with the larger intelligence of the cosmos. Wow. Okay, so that's the end of part one. And you know, I think I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into part two because it came, and I'll just change the title of this. So yeah, so this is the second part of the Uranus and Gemini report. Uranus has just shifted into Gemini. What does that mean? Uranus and progress. Something is gained, something is lost. Uranus is progress. Progress moves us forward, yes, but not without trade-offs. Take electricity, for example. It gave us light at night, but it also disconnected us from nature's rhythms. We no longer wake with the sunrise. We need alarm clocks to wake us. Programming and conditioning, that's a form of it in my view, right? The body became sort of programmed, and that's something that I've learned that can be deprogrammed, and I proved that to myself. I can now, Lisa helped me see that all you have to do is ask the body to wake you at a specific time, and it will. Might take a time or two, and you have to believe that you can do it, but it does work. The smartphone put the whole world at our fingertips, but it also brought more isolation, less connection, and shorter attention spans. Yes, and it mimics what we can do for ourselves, I feel like, in many ways. Hinders connection in so many ways. With progress, we win something, we lose something. Yes, AI agents will take over our repetitive, daunting tasks. Robots will do the cleaning instead of us. This is freeing, right? But it will also remove us from the process of touching the earth, rubbing the floors. Uranus has its way of giving us so much freedom and so many options, but also alienating us from anything that is matter. And since we're half matter, half divine, that part of us that rejoices in the senses, in the physical experience of actually touching, maneuvering, interacting with the 3D world, will miss something under Uranus. Because progress is not just some machines doing work for us, it changes our everyday lives. It shifts our priorities. Bear with me just a moment. As I said, my sister is here. And okay, she is awake. I just wanted to double check if she was up yet because it's quite early in the morning. So, because progress is not just some machines doing work for us, because is not, it changes our everyday lives. It shifts our priorities. Something is always gained, something upgraded, but things are never quite the same. Something found, something lost. Something is found and something is lost. Uranus doesn't have to mean a world full of robots and AI assistants. Remember those sci-fi movies from the 80s? Gray, digitized cities filled with flying drones? Yet, here we are, nearly 50 years later, and what we're seeing is the opposite. More greenery, a renewed interest in nature, a desire to reconnect with what's real. Whenever the future feels frightening or uncertain, remember this. Uranus is not an energy that enslaves. It's an energy that liberates. It offers us choices, freedom, and new possibilities. But with that much freedom can also come a sense of disconnection. If I can have anything I want, if everything is instant and effortless, what do I long for? What's left to look forward to? What grounds me in the physical, in the human experience? How do we balance the cool distance of progress with the warmth of meaning? The answer to Uranus' cool, detached energy is the sun's radiating heat, just like in the 12-sign zodiac sequence. Aquarius opposes Leo. Intellect and knowledge crave heart and passion, just like emotion needs reason. In The Wizard of Oz, the robot longed for one thing. If I only had a heart. The antidote to Uranus detachment and alienation is to remember why we create in the first place. To feel, to connect, to be alive. Uranus in Gemini, the helping hand. The quote, invisible hand is a concept introduced by economist Adam Smith to describe how unseen forces can, quote, invisibly guide individual actions toward collective outcomes, even without central control. Well, for me, the minute I read that right there, I can see that invisible hand all over the place. When you're a puzzle piece collector, you can see that invisible hand in many, many, many different ways. Basically, in complex ecosystems, everything interacts and self-adjusts and somehow magically works out as if it were being guided by an invisible hand. The outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, function in a similar way. They operate behind the scenes, shaping events on a large scale according to an invisible logic. Many of us, when we go through outer planetary transits like Uranus transits, feel like life turns upside down. Things don't make sense at first. But it's worth remembering that in the grand scheme of things, Everything is moving in a meaningful direction, not always on our timeline or in the way we expected. What we often resist is not the change itself, but the gap between what we had hoped would happen and what actually unfolds. However, how many times when we look back do we realize that events which were initially disrupted turned out to be blessings in disguise? Ooh, I talk about that a lot because things that I might have originally labeled as mistakes or bad or, oh, I didn't want that or I wasn't expecting that turned out to be exactly what had to happen in exactly the right timing. And I just couldn't perceive it as such in the moment because I had expected something else, I desired something else, or whatever. But with time and distance, I'm able now to see, oh, I get it. And so now for me, as things transpire, I'm quick to remind friends and family, but you know what? We got no idea what may come of this. In this moment, it looks like this is a bad thing or whatever, but it must be apparently necessary for something else to occur. And we have no idea what it could be tied to make it come out in a lot of ways better, even, right, than what we thought or what we planned or what we expected. But because of the way we're holding it in that moment, and it wasn't what we wanted or what we planned, we think of it as a bad thing or a mistake or, all of those kinds of things. But they turn out to be blessings in disguise. We don't always know what's good for us, but the outer planets do. They move according to a deeper intelligence, like the invisible hand gently guiding us toward what we truly need. So there's no need to fear Uranus's transit through Gemini and the change it will inevitably bring. Everything will eventually make sense. In fact, this time we have an additional reason to look forward to the changes. Uranus in Gemini and the minor triangle. Uranus in Gemini will be part of a supportive configuration known as a minor triangle formed with Neptune and Saturn in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. Neptune in Aries sits at the apex, at the top of the triangle, the manifestation point, while Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius in sextile are the helping hands. This suggests that a dream that is emerging, waiting to be born, as Neptune conjuncts Saturn in Aries, will be helped into reality by the sharp, innovative intelligence of Uranus and the deep, transformative power of Pluto. We can think of Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius as the, quote, invisible hand, as Adam Smith originally described it in the context of self-regulating systems, and apply this principle to the larger unfolding of our lives. Uranus in Gemini, in particular, will help bring the dream to life by connecting ideas, people, and tools, giving Neptune in Aries the clarity and support it needs to turn bold visions into action. Uranus in Gemini 2025 to 2032. The aspects. Uranus enters Gemini on July 3rd. That was just yesterday for you guys. Today is July 8th, 2025. So Uranus enters Gemini on July 7th, 2025, and remains there until November 8th, 2025, when it briefly retrogrades back into Taurus for a final goodbye. It then re-enters Gemini on January 9th, 2026, and stays through August 3rd, 2032. After a brief dip into Cancer, Uranus returns to Gemini in December 2032 and leaves the sign for good in May 2033. During its stay in Gemini, key planetary aspects include Uranus trine Pluto in Aquarius, which will be active from July 2025 through May 2029. Uranus sextile Neptune in Aries from 2025 to 2027. The first exact alignment is August 2025. That's producing a very interesting feeling within my body there. I'm not quite sure what that's about. The trine and the sextile combined with the Neptune-Pluto sextile form. Okay, for some reason it has something to do with, might just be my communication superhighway, because that's what I was just shown. Very interesting. For those of you who are not aware, I feel the brainstem, the central nervous system, is the body's communication superhighway. And I keep being shown that in my body, at least, there's some things happening to widen that highway so that more information can more freely move about, if you will. At least that's my interpretation of what I keep being shown in that respect. The trine and the sextile combined with the Neptune-Pluto sextile, form the minor triangle, a quote, mini grand trine, an energetic configuration that is directly activated 3 times at 1 degree on August through September of 2025, at 4 degrees on July 3rd through the 31st, 2026, and at 6 degrees, June 5th through the 17th on 2027. These are the times of the exact aspects. The actual influence begins as soon as Uranus enters Gemini, which is July of 2025, and extends through 2028. Another notable aspect is the Uranus-Saturn conjunction at 27 degrees Gemini, which becomes exact in June of 2032. This conjunction further connects the dots from the longer story arc initiated when Uranus began sextiling Neptune and Saturn in Aries back in 2026. Saturn conjunct Uranus symbolizes the integration of innovation and structure when experimental ideas, technologies, and societal models seeded earlier in the cycle begin to crystallize into practical, enduring systems. What a powerful way for Uranus to end its stay in Gemini, a final role that its legacy is here to stay. A final note, I guess, that its legacy is here to stay. Uranus in Gemini, why, what, how, the outer context. While we will have a dedicated write-up for the Neptune-Pluto-Uranus minor triangle, let's talk a bit about Uranus and Gemini in the broader context of all the outer planets' changing signs. According to Astro Butterfly's Why, What, How framework, the outer planets are the big movers and shakers. Everything that unfolds in our lives is part of the greater choreography of the outer planets, according to this framework. No, sorry. According to this framework, Pluto is the why, Neptune is the what, and Uranus the how. This framework is based on each planet's distance from the sun and the length of its orbital cycle. The farther a planet is from the sun, the deeper and more foundational its influence. Pluto, being the farthest at 248 years to complete a cycle, is the why, the deeper undercurrent driving long-term transformation. In our current era, that deeper, quote, why is reflected in Pluto in Aquarius, whose core agenda is to decentralize power, shifting influence away from rigid hierarchies and into distributed networks. Next comes Neptune with a 165-year orbit, the what? Neptune in Aries defines the emerging vision, a new dream rooted in personal power and independence, where purpose comes from within, which is Aries, not from tradition or collective beliefs. And feel into those energies for just a few moments. Right there. It's all about sovereignty. We are moving into an era of sovereignty, and that's basically what that says. In personal, it says the what? Neptune in Aries defines the emerging vision, a new dream rooted in personal power and independence, aka sovereignty, which also comes with it personal responsibility, accountability, and all of those things, where purpose comes from within, not from traditional or collective beliefs. And that's really changing, in my view, on the planet in a huge way. Each being is being asked to examine their beliefs, their everything they ever thought was true kind of deal. Every single one of us, in my view, is being asked that question. It's whether or not we see it for ourselves or even care to contemplate it. And each one will do that in a totally individual way, wholly unto themselves, in my view. And when we arrive, back to the article now, when we arrive at Uranus, the how, with its faster 84-year cycle, Uranus gives us the technological, intellectual, and systemic upgrades that enable Neptune's vision to take shape and support Pluto's agenda. Ooh, which is why I keep being flashed the information superhighway in the body, because that's partly what that is too. These energies that we are undergoing are widening are offering us the ability to widen our perspectives, our perceptions on our perspectives, to consider deeper, more intellectual and upgrades, yes, because we're also getting that to our bodies as well, that will enable the Neptune's vision to take shape and support Pluto's agenda. Absolutely. Wow. Uranus gives us the technological, intellectual, and systemic upgrades that enable Neptune's vision to take shape and support Pluto's agenda. The real why behind Neptune's move into Aries or Uranus' entry into Gemini ultimately ties back to Pluto in Aquarius. Uranus in Gemini may show up as AI and robots, but in the context of the why, what, how framework, these are not the source of change. They are expressions of the change. They are tools, not the blueprint. So, how does Uranus in Gemini look when viewed through the lens of this bigger picture? In the previous cycle, the configuration looked like this. Why? Pluto in Capricorn. Power concentrated in hierarchies, institutions, elite structures. What? Neptune in Pisces. Collective ideals, escapism, dissolving boundaries. How? Uranus in Taurus. Practical innovations, financial systems, digital assets like crypto. The how was about building new systems of value within old frameworks. The world was trying to modernize, but within a pyramidal structure of power, Pluto in Capricorn. Now the story has dramatically shifted. The why, which is now Pluto in Aquarius, power is being redistributed across peer-to-peer networks. Centralized control is dissolving. I mean, energetically, you can see that very clearly. I can anyway. I don't know. I'd love to hear your comments about it in the show, in the comments of this video. The what? Neptune and Saturn in Aries. The individual is now the visionary. We are moving away. We are moving from we believe to I lead. And I think that's very true. Each I has to be able to step up to the plate for themselves and say, okay, I get it. You're allowed to believe whatever you want to believe. For me, I'm looking at it this way, and be okay that we're not following the pack or whatever the case may be. And that's been a difficult road for many, myself included, right? Wow, that's very, very interesting. So the how, Uranus and Gemini, the tools of change become communication, data, learning systems, and networked intelligence. In this new era, the unit of power is no longer the institution, it's the network. And Uranus and Gemini will facilitate this exchange, giving us the bandwidth, the communication superhighway, ideas, platforms, and breakthroughs to actually make it work. Well, part of that is each one allowing themselves to absorb new concepts, to contemplate these things in different ways than we've ever allowed ourselves to do that in the past. Uranus and Gemini break down or break through. At an individual level, Uranus in Gemini marks an incredibly significant shift. Uranus moves out of a house or area of life that has been in focus for the last 7 years and enters a completely new terrain. What once felt like the dominant theme in your life will begin to fade, and a new area of life will come into focus. Yes, and that's thrown a lot of folks for a loop, myself included, because there was some dominant themes in my life that are now fading away. I can see that very clearly by what this is saying right here. Uranus brings an influx of energy, disruption, and acceleration to the house that it transits. That's in your own personal natal chart. Uranus in Gemini asks us to open our minds and welcome ideas, experiences, and possibilities we hadn't even considered before, even those that challenge everything we thought to be true. I could not agree more as I was just saying that, I think. When we embrace this change and open to a higher perspective, Uranus in Gemini becomes a supportive influence. It speeds things up, creates breakthroughs, and reveals entirely new paths. Think about electricity or AI, are both ruled by Uranus, technologies that unleashed incredible momentum once harnessed. Tapping into Uranus can feel like unlocking a holy grail of insight, growth, and forward movement. However, if we resist the change or try to cling to the old paradigm, Uranus transits can feel very destabilizing and or chaotic. Uranus in Gemini transited natal house. Ultimately, the house transited by Uranus in Gemini is the area of life where you are asked to evolve. For example, if Uranus in Taurus transits your 7th house, relationships take center stage. Many astrologers associate Uranus in the 7th with more, quote, negative influences, such as disruptions, breakups, divorce. But a better term for Uranus transits might be paradigm shift. Wherever Uranus goes, it rewrites the script. In the 7th house, it opens your mind to a new understanding of relationships. If your old paradigm was stability equals security in relationships, Uranus might challenge that and bring partners or experiences that defy that definition. But if your old paradigm was, I'm better off alone, I don't want commitment, Uranus might shift that too, suddenly introducing someone who makes you reconsider everything. By the end of the transit, your approach to relationships will likely be completely different and more authentic. The same paradigm shift approach applies to any house that Uranus transits. Uranus in the 9th, a new set of beliefs or worldview. Uranus in the 10th, a reimagined career path. Uranus in the 11th, a new relationship to groups, networks, or social impact. Uranus in Gemini, a glass-bottomed boat. The Sabian symbol of Uranus, first degree in Gemini, which is 0 degree Gemini, is a glass-bottomed boat reveals undersea wonders. This symbol speaks to the surprising treasures that suddenly become visible when we shift our perspective. With fresh eyes, what was once invisible to the logical mind is suddenly revealed. All it takes is a simple shift in how we look. We know that our mercurial 3D sensory systems, sight, hearing, smell, etc., can only pick up a small fraction of what actually exists. We can only see a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum known as visible light, 400 to 700 nanometers. We can see ultraviolet, infrared, X-rays, or gamma rays. We can't see them, but they are real. They're very real, and they are there. We humans can only hear sounds in the range of about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. But here's ultrasound and infrasound. Elephants and bats can hear it, for example. basically what we experience as quote reality is just a thin slice of what's actually there. And who knows what else is out there that science hasn't even begun to detect or understand. There's so much more out there to explore and make sense of. And now, with Uranus and Gemini, we have the means and the tools to, quote, see the larger picture and open up new opportunities. Wow. And of course, now that's the end of this one. And it says you can find the web shareable version of this email, part 1 and 2, on the Astro Butterfly website, which I will have in the Show More section a link to the whole article. And I totally encourage you to go there and sign up for her free email about, because every time she puts one of these out, you'll get it in your inbox. I am not always nudged to record and share her work. But I tell you, even if you are just now beginning to expose yourself to astrology, it is one of the largest tools for me personally in my puzzle piece collecting of putting together what actually is going on the planet as a whole. Even though I don't quite understand all of it, things that pique my interest, I'll Google them, man. Oh, what's that mean? And I'll, get definitions. And it has really opened up my perspective about, what it is we're doing here on this planet. And so again, I'm happy to run some charts for you if you'd like. You can just, again, you may have to cut me a break, give me, a couple of weeks, depending on how many of you ask me to do that. As I said earlier, just include your name, date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, and and your email, of course, and I will send it back to you. What else did I want to share? Do go there and sign up and take a look around on her site too. She's got a lot of really great information. She actually does offer seminars, and she has a school as well. And I believe she has a community. Of course, all those things, she does have things that you can sign up for and become a part of that do require, a monetary exchange. But the email part is free. And I just adore the way she writes. So until we meet again, my friends, I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy, that which draws your interest. Because if there is something that draws your interest, there's something there for you. And at least that's the way I've come to feel about that. So until we meet again, my friends, be well. Mwah.